Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy, comedians, and the comedy industry. A sentence the algorithm loves. Margaret Cho posted, Louis C.K. should have just had an OnlyFans so people could just pay to watch him, do CK stuff instead of subjecting female comics to it. Missed financial opportunity. Eric Duggins on Substack asked the question, does Louis C.K.'s new Netflix special on high-profile concert appearance signal Hollywood has turned its back on the Me Too movement it once championed? In case you missed the headline, Netflix has invited Louis C.K. to headline a show at the Netflix is a Joke Comedy Festival. Louis will also have a special on Netflix later this year. Eric Duggins writes, some people have suggested that it's difficult to know how to handle someone like Louis C.K., who is still relatively young and capable of creating a lot more projects. He's been away from most mainstream entertainment for years, they might say. Isn't that enough? Eric writes, for me, it's much less about how long they've been gone than what they've done to earn their way back into mainstream show business, besides proving how much money they can make someone. Eric, I will tell you right now, that's always the answer, like always. Welcome to show business, Eric writes. Has CK fully admitted how he's harassed women in the past? Did he apologize directly and publicly to them? Has he helped any of the women who spoke honestly about what he did and saw their careers atomized afterwards? Hollywood prefers to avoid the kinds of admissions which can bring lawsuits and morals clauses. Instead, the big business of entertainment would much prefer a situation where star stays underground until the social blowback has passed, emerging with a tale of redemption and renewal just in time to sell tickets, streams, memberships, and more. Already, Louis C.K. has won a Grammy for Best Comedy Album in 2022. And it's a sure bet he'll be a contender when his new Netflix special gets released as an album. By turning a blind eye to all the rumors about him, all these gatekeepers created a situation where women harassed by him had to speak out publicly and loudly just to force the industry to handle it. The Too Much TV Substack adds, as if there were ever a booking that was more on brand for Netflix, it's headlining a guy who has admitted to, doing stuff in front of female employees and coworkers because, as he put it in recent performances, when you're really good at something, you want to show it off. They write, it's just the latest example of Netflix's decision that it's nearly impossible for a comic to be so unpleasant, so racist, so misogynistic, that it might cost them a shot on a worldwide streaming platform. Star Trek ruiner Patton Oswalt has announced a new special. It is called Ruining Star Trek Tea and Scotch. It will premiere on the 800-Pound Gorilla's YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday, June 9th. Tea and Scotch offers new takes from Patton Oswalt on parenting, living with a cat who sees ghosts, yard cleaning videos, artificial intelligence, and more. Patton Oswalt told Deadline, I've never felt more overwhelmed, terrified, and desperate, so of course my material is the funniest it's ever been. We're reminded that Patton Oswalt is an Emmy and Grammy award-winning comedian, actor, writer, and producer. Oswalt has been working as a stand-up since the late 80s, and the decades since, he's released 10 specials and helped to ruin Star Trek by playing Doug the Vulcan. Patton Oswalt will soon be starring alongside Jake Johnson and Ben Stiller in Apple's pickleball comedy The Dink, which comes out July 24th. Speaking of Star Trek ruiners, Stephen Colbert's show is coming to an end. Stephen Colbert helped ruin Star Trek by voicing the computer on that horrible, horrible Starfleet Academy show. We now know what CBS will do with the 11:35 p.m. slot. They're not even going to run one single rerun of Colbert. Colbert ends on Thursday, May 21st. That very next night, Friday, May 22nd at 11:35 p.m. If you put on CBS, you will see Byron Allen's Comics Unleashed, the comedy panel show Byron Allen created in 2006. It will move from 12:37 a.m. on CBS to 11:35. So what's going to air at 12:37? Another program from Allen Media, this one called Funny You Should Ask. I had to look this up. It's got a 5.2 rating on IMDb. That's out of 10, and you can watch it for free on Tubi. Well, at 12:37, Funny You Should Ask features former extra correspondent John Kelly hosting a comedy game show that features a panel of comedians interacting with two contestants who have a chance to win cash if they can read between the lines of the comic's jokes. For example, you could have watched Season 9, Episode 48, which aired February 27, 2026. That starred Jamie Kennedy, Cheryl Underwood, Adam Carolla, Byron Allen, Natasha Leggero, and Jimmy Walker. Cheap to produce? Yeah, why not? I don't know. I just find it all so disappointing. I'm a broadcasting guy. I grew up in radio. I caught the last 5 minutes of the golden age of radio. I worked with people who worked in radio during World War II. So, I appreciate all this stuff. And it's just yeah, whatever. Let's just run Byron Allen crap. Who cares? I mean, it's even more disappointing than if they had totally punted and were yeah, let's just run CSI reruns. At least, I don't know. This doesn't sit well with me. I'm just old. Chloe Fineman started talking about a job she had once been fired from. As I understand things, Chloe Fineman said when she was 16, she was working as a camp counselor. She was fired after pulling down the pants of a young camper during a hike. She explained the child had repeatedly lifted her shirt as a prank. She decided to retaliate. I'm told, as she told the story, her castmates, which included Mikey Day, Sarah Sherman, Ashley Padilla, Jane Wickline, and James Austin Johnson, appeared visibly uncomfortable. Chloe said the child was around 6 years old and admitted the situation escalated when it became obvious he wasn't wearing underwear. The criticism comes from many viewers arguing the anecdote was presented too casually for something involving a child and a humiliating public incident. So after I recorded that section you just heard, I found the clip, and I have learned that Vanity Fair has pulled the clip down. But let's listen to the clip that I just explained to you. I think it'll give you a lot more context. And because this is an audio podcast, what you won't see are the faces of her castmates, and the faces are real bad. Everybody's face is like, what are you doing? Stop talking. It's really bad. But here, let's listen to Chloe Fineman.
No, I was fired as a camp counselor.
For hitting on the campers?
What is that? No, I pantsed a boy.
Oh, honey, I think you're on a list somewhere.
And he wasn't wearing underpants.
Oh!
And then a giant school bus drove by, and they were like, "You can't," like, because he would lift my shirt all the time.
Oh, what is happening?
It was Berkeley.
How old was the child?
He was like 6. No, it was a different time. Like he would be like, "Hey, can I have a hug?" And I'd go to hug him, and then he'd like lift my shirt like a dick. And then I was like, "I'm gonna get back at you." And so we were on a hike, and I was like, "Hey, Ollie, go look over there. It's a hawk." And he looked, and then I yanked his pants down. He wasn't wearing underwear. His little ding-a-ling was out. And then these two twins were like, "Ollie, I didn't know you didn't wear underwear." And then I was fired.
Leslie Jones made some headlines after appearing on Z-Way's podcast. Z-Way asked Leslie Jones if Leslie could ever embrace the traditional wife lifestyle. Leslie Jones said, "Absolutely not, because that's not who the F I am, and my daddy didn't raise me like that. My dad used to literally say that to me. I didn't raise you to be somebody's wife." Jones continued, saying, "Most of the people that I know that have gotten married or divorced now, I think marriage is legalized slavery." Z-Way asked for more about that. Jones said, especially if he's expecting you to be a trad wife, it might as well pull out a whip and chain. I don't think it's beneficial for a woman at all. Don't get married. I thought this week's SNL USA was terrible, like really, really bad. I didn't even make it through update. The UK one was way better. Peacock finally posting the episodes at a normal hour. I watched both episode 3 and episode 2 on Sunday night. There's a lot of good sketches in there if you watch the show, you know, the way one would watch SNL with the full rhythm of cold open, credits, monologue, pre-recorded sketch. You know how SNL goes. Yeah. I think the weak spot on SNL UK is actually the news. But it's only been 3 weeks. My tip there to the two newscasters, pick up the pace a little. I was playing a bunch of video games and catching up on my podcasting. What were you playing, John? We're curious. Let's see. I was playing MLB The Show. I played a bunch of games of NHL 26. Mostly those two. And I was listening to Joe Rogan's interview with Theo Vaughn. As I've said on the podcast before, and I will say again, I like Joe Rogan's podcast because I'm a smart person. I understand what Joe Rogan's podcast is. It's just a conversation. I don't think it's an education at all. And I also like that volume-wise, it's usually pretty even. There's not much yelling on the Joe Rogan Experience, which I like. I don't like these podcasts that are all over the place volume-wise. But one takeaway I really had from listening to that episode, Joe Rogan's not smart. And you know who's even less smart than Joe Rogan? Theo Vaughn. I mean, I just listened to this thing, and I'm like, is this a real conversation? I think part of it is Rogan does zero prep. At one point I was listening, and he's like, how many astronauts are going around the moon? 10? 10, Joe? Did you really think 10 astronauts were going around the moon? But Theo Vaughn, you listen to Theo Vaughn, it's just like, whoa. Theo got a lot of backlash for his appearance on Rogan's podcast. He jumped on social media and said, it was very hard for me to be angry and talk at the same time. Some people were upset by comments made by Theo Vaughn, which I'll clean up here. Theo said, approximately, I'm sick of rich people not putting their effing kids over in these wards. Put your, and he used a pejorative for white people, kids up there. Let them go shed some effing blood. That got some backlash. Theo went on Twitter and wrote, I mean, the elites and the politicians that are leading us into these wars might make different choices if it was their children. I'm thankful to our troops who serve and are far braver than me. Also, WTF do I know? In a separate post, he wrote, I was angry and kind of scared. I wouldn't even have the freedom of speech if all types of people braver than me hadn't sacrificed for it.
Gossip Corner, whispers in the street. Gossip Corner, probably about Pete. Gossip Corner, where the rumors meet. With Johnny Mac, it's always a treat.
We haven't been on Gossip Corner in a while, but here we are. And yes, Gossip Corner is about Pete Davidson, who has put his North Salem, New York property on the market, reportedly for $2.27 million, according to Mansion Global. Pete purchased the 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home located about 90 minutes from New York City in 2023 for $1.95 billion. It's on 6 acres of property. I'm from Queens. I don't know how much that is. Is that big? Sounds big. AI tells me an acre visually is about 75 to 90% of an American football field. All right, so Pete's got, say, 5 football fields worth of property up there. Pete had previously said about the property, it's literally like living in paradise. The thing I hated about living in the city all the time was I'd wake up to so much noise, whether it be garbage being picked up or people fighting or your neighbors or whatever's going on the street. In North Salem, I would wake up naturally and I wouldn't feel a thing. It was the most special feeling. Pete added a guest house, movie room, pool, hot tub, cold plunge tool, sauna, and screened-in porches to the property. Pete has also sold his condo in St. George, Staten Island. Pete Davidson is renting a Brooklyn brownstone. He also co-owns a ferry. While we're on Gossip Corner, Chris Rock spotted doing some PDA. That's right, the paparazzi were out, and they saw a 61-year-old Chris Rock photographed with a woman identified as Simone in photos. Chris Rock and Simone were walking side by side for a daytime stroll. They even stopped to share a kiss while sitting on a park bench. Kevin Kellum has a special out. You may know Kevin if you're out of Chicago. He's there on Q101. In his new special, Kevin pours his heart into mutually shared anxieties, being the black sheep, and what it's like to experience heartbreak when you're live on the air, filmed during the Windy City Comedy Festival at Lincoln Hall. You'll find Kevin Kellum's special on YouTube and Bandcamp. Let's check in on the Melbourne Comedy Festival. The Scoop went to see Hannah Gadsby's show, The Evening Muse, described as a talk show, wrapped in a comedy show, wrapped in an existential crisis. Hannah's show got 4.5 stars out of 5. The Scoop says Gadsby's performance is chaotic and self-aware, blending razor-edge wit with disarming vulnerability. We're told few comics mind discomfort, intellect, and absurdity so masterfully. The Merlin Theatre at Melbourne's Malthouse Theatre Complex is lovingly decked out with an aesthetic similar to The Tonight Show. Comfy couches, a desk for the host, complete with an Emmy, an old-school applause sign. The first half of the evening takes the form of a stand-up show. Gadsby refers to that as the bulk chat. The second half morphs into a talk show meets quiz show. Hannah Gadsby brings fellow comedians, in this case Abby Howells and Emma Holland, onto the stage. I believe the guests change every night, to share stories and tackle Trivial Pursuit questions. The Scoop says what follows is delightful pandemonium, utterly unpredictable and wildly whimsical. And The Guardian collected stories from performers at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Rich Hall told one. You may remember Rich Hall if you're ancient like me. Rich Hall was on Saturday Night Live. Remember that guy? Remember Sniglets? If you're old, you do. If you're young, you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, Rich Hall doesn't make the anniversary specials. Rich told The Guardian, I was part of the great debate at Town Hall. The topic was money is the root of all evil. At some point, I invoked the biblical metaphor from Matthew, quote, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man enter heaven. On paper, it looks dicey, but I figured we should at least give the camel a stab at it. I love this. The director, who never met a comic challenge he didn't like, made a few calls and secured a camel. They coaxed it into the town hall. The camel pronated. I climbed on his back. The camel stood up. I think my head touched the roof. Someone held a needle in front of the camel's nose. Rich Hall said something like, giddy up. The camel did not pass through the eye of a needle. Rich Hall says it looked a little ticked off, to be honest. Turns out Matthew was pretty accurate on this one. And that is your comedy news for today. Don't forget to vote for Comedy Survivor. We're down to 3. Who will be the Comedy Survivor? Will it be Nikki Glaser, John Mulaney, or Sarah Silverman? It's up to you. Go to the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. There you'll find a picture of me and last week's eliminated comedian. Yes, I phrased that correctly. Sebastian Maniscalco. In that thread, you write down a name, you vote somebody off the island. Comedy Survivor, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Meet you back here in the morning.